my identity was very much wrapped up in my role as a nurse. And that meant taking care of people and being overly responsible for everyone else's care and needs. And that also meant that I would abandon my own needs to overextend myself and overfunction. So a lot of my later journey, after I was sort of able to heal from burnout and really look at my alcohol addiction, was, who am I really? There's more to me than Michelle the nurse. Like, there's a whole lot more to me. And I didn't have boundaries. I didn't honor my time. I didn't honor my energy. I very much needed everyone else to validate me by accepting me. So I would go above and beyond so that people would like me and include me. And that meant that I was worthy and was good enough.
Welcome to the Go Go Bistro podcast, where we dish up inspiration for women who are hungry for change and ready to make it happen. I'm your host, Noelle Van, an author, creator, and empowerment coach who spent years in corporate America helping innovators and leaders ride the waves of change with ease and grace. I now work with women to step into change and unleash the power they have to create a life they love. This is a space to let go of the fear and say yes to possibility. Whether you're contemplating a change in your career, relationship, health, lifestyle, or anything in between, nothing is off the table. I'll be serving up simple insights to help you manage the ups and downs of change and share my interviews with successful women who took a leap of faith to create the life they knew they were meant to live, sharing their wisdom, advice, and all the juicy lessons they've learned along the way. So join me at my favorite little two-top, pull up a chair, and let's get started. As women, we are naturally born caretakers and multitaskers, a dangerous mix that often leaves us trying to be everything to everyone while neglecting our own self-care and health in the process. We take on careers just as seriously as we take on the other roles in our lives as mothers, spouses, partners, sisters, aunts, and friends. As we all know, healthcare professionals all over the world have faced unimaginable complexities as a result of the past few years, and the daily demands within that profession in even the best of times can be relentless. Michelle Gordon has been a healthcare professional for 25 years, with 8 years spent in emergency nursing. She was working exhausting hours and living a life of fear, lack, and scarcity when she had a life-changing moment that led her to addiction recovery and a new identity away from the career she felt had defined her for so many years. In today's episode, Michelle shares how extreme burnout forced her to leave behind the long hours of nursing to embrace a healthier and more satisfying pace of health coaching, and the challenges she faced taking on this new persona. Michelle, we are so happy to have you here. Welcome to Go Go Bistro.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
So, Michelle, take us back a few years to the changes that led to kind of your increasing your work hours. I know you had mentioned that that's kind of when things started to get a little crazy.
Yeah. So about 5 years ago, probably longer than that, my husband and I had just had our third child, and my husband had started a business which wasn't going so well. And we ended up, when our little girl was 10 months old, I went straight back into work, full-time nursing. And not only full-time, but I was picking up, extra shifts and multiple shifts to get us out of, I guess, the financial situation that we were in. And that led me to doing 5, 6, and 7 shifts a week with a brand new baby, or 10-month-old baby, and 2 other children as well. So I pretty much went from the beautiful mum state of, having this baby and living in beautiful, motherhood land for that while, straight into back to full-time work in an emergency department, and, right into the thick of it all.
Wow. Okay. So how long was that? I mean, how long were you in sort of that mode of doing more and more hours? Was that between, like a period of couple of weeks, or did you start doing that for years?
3 years.
Wow.
So it was a long time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how did you juggle that?
I just went into have to fix it mode, and we need some money, and I'm a nurse and I can work as many shifts as I like, and I can fix this because that's what I do. I fix people, for that was my job. And I went into, I'm going to fix this situation. We're going to get, some money in and create some cash flow. And I ended up not handling it really well. What started out as really great ended up me, driving myself into burnout and working harder and harder and harder. And I missed the cues of burnout, and I started to cope with the stress of everyday life with a few glasses of wine after my shift or after I came home from work. And that is where things really started to go downhill.
So how did you get to a place after a while that you started to recognize that it was going downhill, or did it take a bit of time to get there?
It took a bit of time to get there. On the outside, I was portraying that life was great and that I was fine. And I was emergency department nurse. My job was to patch people up and fix people and help people. And I wasn't the one that needed help. In my mind, I wasn't the one that needed help or should ask for help for that matter. So I kept going, and this was another 2-year period of me really living on the hamster wheel. I switched off my emotions and my feelings and went into autopilot mode to work and come home. And it was this eat, sleep, work, repeat. And when I went into autopilot mode, that was really a survival mode for me to be able to keep doing that and provide for my family. And that went on for a 2-year period until I eventually hit rock bottom.
Wow. So what did that look like in terms of hitting rock bottom? Was it a thought? Was it a circumstance?
I had noticed the signs that I was burnt out. I started to see some of the signs, and then I started to notice my health deteriorate. So my gut health, I started to get really bad gastrointestinal pain. I wasn't eating, but my weight had ballooned out of control. I was the heaviest that I had ever been. And yet I wasn't eating. I was barely, nourishing my body. I wasn't hydrating my body. I was living on caffeine. I was buzzing during the day and getting through the day with the caffeine high, and then coming home in the afternoon drinking the wine to sort of wind down. And I noticed that, wow, this is not healthy. Okay, I need to sort of look at this. But I was too scared to stop and really see it. And I was too scared to actually face or admit that this was a problem and I needed to just sort myself out, I guess. There was 2 periods, 2 real critical moments that made me stop and realize this was a big problem. And one of them was I woke up on the floor of my lounge room after drinking 3 bottles of wine. And my husband had gone away for work. My 3 small children were still asleep. And I woke up with a smashed wine bottle next to me. And I'd passed out from drinking so much. And I woke up and I obviously didn't know where I was. I, didn't know if I was alive. I felt, like I had this horrible headache. And that kind of moment I went, whoa, what's happening here? This has got to stop. So that was the one moment. And then a couple of weeks later, I'd come home, again, had poured the glass of wine after a busy day, a busy shift at work, and I poured the glass of wine and sat down in my chair, taken my usual spot, switched it onto autopilot, turned the brain off. And I'd had a couple of 2 glasses of wine at this stage, and my little girl, who was now 2.5 at this stage, toddled up to me, and she stood right in front of me and sort of stopped and stared at me and was just looking at me wanting my attention. And I was a million miles away. And she, walked right up to me and grabbed my face and said, "Mummy, where are you?" And that was the moment that I said, no more.
Right.
Wow. Like I have to stop now.
That is a really pivotal time That is really powerful too. I feel like, especially in your profession, right? I mean, you think about, having been in that position myself where getting up and going to work and kind of pulling yourself out of bed after a night of drinking can be really, really tough. I cannot imagine then going into the environment that you went into, which was life or death, right? I mean, you're in a situation every day where you're helping people in an emergency situation. That must have been a couple of really rocky days, right? Of going in and feeling hungover. Like, how did you cope with that?
I got used to coping. I was used to feeling so bad. I was used to feeling like rubbish. And there was a few times there, obviously I would go into work sober. I had stopped drinking the night before. I'd had a big sleep. It was the waking up feeling groggy, feeling headachy, feeling tired, and you don't sleep well when you've been drinking alcohol. And I remember a few times looking at my patients, thinking, I actually could be in that bed. I am that sick, and I am that not physically sick, but mentally I knew that I was extremely burnt out. And there was a few moments where I thought, if I could just swap and take my patient's spot and just someone take care of me, because that's how bad I felt. And I didn't realize, because it had been such a long period of time, I didn't realize how bad I had felt for so long until I started to feel good.
Right.
Yeah.
How did you start? Once your daughter confronted you that way, was it the next day?
Yeah, pretty much the next day. There was the moment of waking up on the floor. There was, obviously the signs. My gastrointestinal system was upset. I'd had some scopes done. I'd seen a surgeon, and they were all puzzled as to what was going on. And I knew. I was like, oh, this is all related to my burnout. This is related to me drinking wine and not nourishing my body. I just knew that this was all connected. And the first thing I did was just actually stop and face myself. It was really looking myself in the mirror. And I actually took a screenshot of that day that I did that, of my face.
Wow.
And my face was bloated. My eyes were so dull. Like I looked like a million miles away. I was so puffy and swollen and so sad. And I took a screenshot, and that was like that moment of me just saying, Michelle, enough's enough. There's so much to look forward to in your life. You have so many beautiful, a beautiful husband and 3 beautiful children. Now's the time to look after yourself. And it started with making the decision that I was not going to come home and continue that habit of escaping life with wine. So that was the first thing.
Yep.
The second thing was nourishing my body with proper food and hydrating my body. And the third thing was really looking at my mindset and my subconscious patterns that I was, I guess, running in my brain, like what was happening with my thoughts.
So you kind of came to this realization, and then did you start looking at it? You didn't do any kind of AA or anything like that. You just kind of stopped, and then did you seek out additional help anywhere else?
No, I didn't seek out AA or anything like that. I hired a coach. So she was a health and fitness coach. However, a lot of her work was mindset, which was great. And I really loved the combination of, me going off to gym. I had a meal plan. I had a great routine set in that way. And then we would have conversations every week. And a lot of that was mindset and really me sort of taking back control. And just those two, in the 3 to 6 months really helped me catapult me into starting to feel good and starting to get my energy back.
That's amazing. And I think when you started this path with her, was this something that were you looking to completely overhaul everything, or was it just really kind of getting through the day first? And then, did she have a plan that you put together with her, or was there something that she helped walk you through to kind of get from the first to the second to the third phase of what you were going through?
Yeah. So the intention was to become fit and healthy.
Right.
So that was the first intention, and that was it, kind of it for me. I just thought I want to get fit. I want to be healthy. I don't want to rely on this habit anymore. I know that I can show up as an incredible nurse and an incredible mum and feel strong and empowered and not have to escape my life, with the stress. So there was a better way to deal with stress.
Right.
So that was the first thing. After working with her, I sort of took myself off on another journey, and that was really pulling apart what were the thoughts and patterns that was driving my behavior.
Yeah.
And I started to notice a few things about myself that I hadn't known before. And one of them was that I was a people pleaser, and that I really had this deep need to please everyone around me. That meant abandoning my own needs and abandoning my own feelings. So I then started to really dive into, why do I do that? Like, why can I not say no? Why do I say yes to all the shifts at work? Why do I say yes when I mean no to my friends? Like, what's going on here? What's driving this behavior? And that really took me on a whole new journey of discovering my own self-concept, my own self-worth.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's always kind of a big shift in mindset when you decide to take care of yourself, especially if you're somebody that works a lot. It really does start with setting boundaries. It feels counterintuitive at first because it's like, no, I'm setting boundaries. I'm making sure that I'm getting things done, and I'm working till everything gets done, and I'm making sure that I'm completing what I need to do. But in reality, it's like that's the first place to start. And you were in a profession where you are looked at as the caregiver, right? The person that's relied upon and all of those things. So I could see where that would feed into it too, and would kind of support that way of thinking.
Oh, absolutely. And I've been a nurse now for 25 years. So I left high school and went straight into nursing.
Wow.
So that very much became my identity. I was known in my family and amongst, my friendship circles, Michelle the nurse. And I climbed the ranks in nursing. I worked in lots of fast-paced critical care environments and hospitals. And later on in my last 8 or 9 years, I was here in the emergency department and again, another fast-paced environment. So my identity was very much wrapped up in my role as a nurse. And that meant taking care of people and being overly responsible for everyone else's care and needs. And that also meant that I would abandon my own needs to overextend myself and overfunction. So a lot of my later journey, after I was sort of able to heal from burnout and really look at my alcohol addiction and dependence, was, who am I really? Like, there's more to me than Michelle the nurse. Like, there's a whole lot more to me. And I didn't have boundaries. I didn't honor my time. I didn't honor my energy. I very much needed everyone else to validate me by accepting me. So I would go above and beyond so that people would like me and include me. And that meant that I was worthy and was good enough.
Right. It's so, it's such an awakening too when you come to realize that about yourself. I feel like that's something that it just helps push you even more forward once you know that that's kind of what it's about. Because, when you transitioned out, so now you go out of nursing, which is being pretty much the point person, right? To go into coaching, where I think those are kind of two different dynamics, right? Coaching, you're holding a space for people, but you're not really solving the problems. You're guiding people, you're holding space, you're making sure that people can come to conclusions that they need to come to and have plans of action. But it feels like a very different world to me than nursing, right? Like, I just feel like there's two different energies there. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, you're so right. So as of last year, July 2022, I went full-time into coaching. So after my journey through burnout, and rediscovering myself, I started to see my industry and my profession with a very different lens. And I started to see, and it's not, exclusive to nurses only. I started to see a lot of women struggling with burnout, overwhelm, and frustration, who also didn't know how to deal with their emotions or experience their emotions and feel their emotions, learn to feel them and process them in a really healthy way. And that's what led me to coaching. And now it is very different in so many ways, because as a coach, you're right, you can see things and shine the light on areas of that other people can't see for themselves. Just like I couldn't see my people pleasing was fueling my burnout in so many ways. And so it's about really holding that space and allowing people to untangle their thoughts, see the drivers of their behaviors, what's fueling their behaviors, and allow them to sort of come up with a plan and heal themselves. It is holding the space, offering them the tools and showing them the tools, offering them that guidance and support for them to sort of heal in their own way, exactly like I did.
Right.
Exactly like I did.
How does it feel? I mean, how does it feel to be a coach and no longer a nurse?
It was the biggest journey for me to, first of all, step into full-time coaching. And I had played around with the idea since 2020, after I launched my very first coaching program. 2.5 years, and I was really afraid to leave nursing, really afraid. It had been me, my identity. I'd been wrapped up in as a nurse, in that whole identity for over 20 years. It was a whole journey in itself. And it took me a long time to make that decision, and then first of all be okay with it. There was a lot of fear associated with leaving nursing to go on and explore coaching and really dive into coaching. But here I am. And now I have just this whole new life. One of my big core values and top core values is freedom.
I love that.
Yes. And freedom was not up there with nursing. You work shift work, you work all through the holidays, 7 days a week.
Oh.
There was no freedom connected to nursing. And that, towards my later years, as I got super clear on what my values were, I was getting more and more frustrated until I went, it's not aligning with what lights me up and what feels good for me, what's my life priority, and that's freedom. So now I have a lot of freedom, and I get to work from anywhere, and I have the most incredible clients. So, yeah.
I love that. Well, so just taking us back a little bit. So when you finally made the decision, what exactly did you do? Did you taper back your hours? Did you do it gradually? Did you do this suddenly? Like, how did you make that leap?
I tapered back my hours. At first, I was, during burnout, step one was to taper back my hours. So no longer picking up the 2 extra shifts, up to, no longer working 7 shifts a week. And I went back down to 5, right? Still full time. And then I went down to 4 shifts a week. So 8 days a fortnight. And I gradually tapered down over a 2-year period with just the intent of I needed to heal and I needed to recover and I needed to spend time with my family. And in the last 2 years, so from 2020 to 2022, when I really decided I want to do coaching, my heart lies in coaching. By the time that I had made that decision, I was only working 1 day a week as a nurse.
So that must have been a big change.
Yeah, it was. And I think that the long transition helped me deal with the identity, crisis that I dealt with. And I had coaching myself through that to be able to sort of take that step into, my new career and passion now, and that's coaching. And I had some coaching on that myself. I had some support and guidance on that myself to really make that transition and follow my heart and soul in this direction.
Do you find that nursing is the backbone of your coaching? I mean, I'm assuming that you're obviously helping people with their well-being. So you're infusing what you've known or learned over the past 25 years with every client you have, right?
Yes. So I do work with a lot of nurses, and I've had a lot of experience talking to many people from many different backgrounds and caring for so many relatives and, the family and all sorts of situations in obviously my 25 years. So that has played a big role in the way I communicate and the way I am able to sort of talk to people and relate to people. So that's been an easy way for me to sort of go from nurse to coach. And these days, a lot of my clients are nurses. Yeah, which is really great.
I was going to say, and what a wonderful thing that you can do for that community, because I feel like nurses, there's been quite a heavy past 4 years that you have all been through. And I am sure that additional help with work-life balance is probably really key in prioritizing now that maybe there's some breathing room to do that for nurses and to really take that into account and start to take care of themselves. I was going to do a talk for nurses at one point, and someone said to me, be careful because nurses are the last people to necessarily think about themselves. And I thought, that's so interesting, but so true, right? I mean, if you're put in the front lines every day, that's kind of the way that you operate, right? Which is, it's kind of sort of built into who you are. And so I bet you're a tremendous help to them.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's the last 4 years have really affected the way that we nurse, healthcare in general. Obviously, it's put a lot of pressure on the healthcare system, on our nurses, on everyone, I guess, in healthcare. And, nurses especially have felt it. So it's really my passion now to really help them shift that frame of thought, shift from putting everyone else's needs first and really getting them to sort of fill up their own cup, look at, what lights them up, look at, their energy input versus the energy output, And this is the thing, I used to come home and I'd do a whole 8-10 hour shift in the emergency department, buzzing here, there and everywhere. And then come home and my family would want a part of me and want all of their needs met. So there's very little time to really plug in and meet our own needs as nurses. And that's super important to have that energy balance and be able to support ourselves.
So important. So important. Now, do you feel like there is, if you were looking back at yourself 4 years ago and where you've come and how far you've come to this place, what would you say is the biggest change that's happened in your life?
It's intentional living for me now.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah. And I do everything now with intention. And before, I was going through the motions of life and going from shift to here to there to picking up the children to coming home to pouring the wine to cooking the dinner. And I was never really present with where I was at. And I guess that's a lot of the work that I've done, the inner work, the working through my feelings, switching off the autopilot. But now everything is done with intention. The people I speak to, the weekends away that my husband and I have with our family, the time that we have, even just sitting together on a weekend, we like to sit up on our balcony and we've got the beautiful beach in the distance from our house. And that's an intentional time that we just sit together and have a conversation and really connect in with each other. And before I wasn't doing that because I was on autopilot.
Yes.
Yeah.
Taking that pause is it's so important. And then once you do it, it's kind of like you can't go back, right?
Yeah.
Because things just become, it's not to say that they weren't as meaningful, but you're taking pause and you're recognizing what's around you, which is that's what life's about, right?
Absolutely. And those moments are so special and so sacred. And, even in the morning when my little girl gets up now, she's now 8, And, we have this beautiful cuddle together when I wake her up in the morning and just that time together. And she wraps her little arms around me.
Oh.
She says to me, "Oh, I love this, Mummy. I love it when you cuddle me in the morning and wake up." That's intentional.
Yes.
It's just so beautiful.
Yes. And to be able to give that to your family, that's just wonderful.
Yeah.
So now what would you say, Michelle, to women out there that are looking to make a change but are maybe afraid to do it? It could be in any scenario, but what would be your words of advice?
The first thing is just to stop and acknowledge where the frustration is or where you're feeling stuck or what is going on. And whether that is, I'm not happy with my job, I'm not fulfilled in my marriage or my relationship, or I'm burnt out, or, what is that for you? What is the problem here? It might be your health. For me, it was, why am I escaping my life with wine all of the time? And that led me to untangle burnout, which led me to untangle my people pleasing. So really stopping it and acknowledging, hey, I'm not happy in this particular area of my life. And then leaning in, the next step would be just to lean into the discomfort and the fear, because beyond that resistance, the fear, the discomfort is something really beautiful when you get through the other side. And what I always say to my clients is it's the breakdown before the breakthrough.
Oh, yes.
When we dance around the problem and not really sort of lean in and look, we don't have those breakthroughs. So if you can stop, acknowledge, yes, and then lean in, go through that messy middle, which is what the breakdown is, but knowing that you'll come out the other side to that breakthrough.
That's great. I love that. The one thing I was going to ask you is kind of what comes next for you. And I know that you've been doing coaching as the happy, healthy nurse, which, by the way, I love that. I love that you call yourself the happy, healthy nurse, because that's what you are, right? So how long have you been doing coaching for now? A couple of years?
3 years.
Okay.
Yeah, 2020 was when I released my program that I wrote through my own journey through burnout. So I realized that there was a series of steps that I had taken, and I wrote them down and created some modules or processes of what did I do. I had a lot of people asking me, what did you do? What have you done? You look so different. Yeah, and that's what became what is now my signature program, the Health and Happiness Formula.
That's great. That's great. And we're going to actually put your links in the show notes too. So if anybody's interested in looking into that, they can find you there. Michelle, I want to thank you so much for joining us. You've been so open about your story. And I feel like you are definitely a image of health and wellness, more so than you probably know, just having gone through what you've gone through and now kind of coming out the other end of it. It's just really it's a beautiful story. And I love that you've gone from one profession that helps so many people into another that's going to do it just on a different scale completely. And I'm thrilled for you. I really am. But thank you so much for coming on here and sharing your story.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. It is such an honor to share my story. And if I can inspire one of your listeners to really lean in and make a change, then, my job's done.
Right.
My job's done. So thank you.
That's great. Thank you, Michelle. Okay, that's it for now. Until next time. Thanks for listening to the Journeys Through Change podcast. You can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or really wherever you get your podcasts. And be sure to follow us and leave a review if you've enjoyed this episode. And share it with a friend or on social media to spread the good word, so more women like you can find us and join in on the fun. For more information on the podcast or Day by Day book, go to livedaybyday.com.